In this clip, we are going to be studying the different layers of the epidermis. So just to recap, if you remember from our previous video when we looked at the different layers of the skin, we identified the most superficial layer of your skin as the epidermis. And though it's actually a thin layer compared to the underlying dermis, it is actually made up of 4 to 5 different layers. So today we're going to be looking at the 4 to 5 different layers, and there's a mnemonic to help you remember the names of each of the layers. So starting deep, moving our way superficially upwards, we're going to notice that we have different layers, starting with a B at the very bottom, so banana split gives loads of calories. However, they are very yummy. So let's go ahead and now learn the different names of the layers of the epidermis, and we are going to be starting at the deepest level. Okay, so deepest level, because the dermis is right below the deepest level of the epidermis, and then we're going to make our way upwards superficially until we reach the most superficial layer of the epidermis, and so here I will write superficial. So here, just to kind of keep you with a proper orientation regarding the different layers. So let's go ahead and start. So the first layer that we're going to be discussing is the B layer, and this is the layer that we call stratum basal. So the stratum basal is actually the deepest layer of the epidermis, so deepest layer of the epidermis, and it's right above the dermis. And so the cells of this stratum basal are actually cuboidal in shape. So we have a simple cuboidal epithelial tissue that makes up this layer. And keep in mind, the epidermis we've already discussed is an epithelial tissue, so we're going to look at different types of epithelial cells here. And so we have a simple cuboidal epithelial that makes up the stratum basal. And because it is the deepest layer of the epidermis, it is linked to the dermis via cell junctions that we call hemidesmosomes. So hemidesmosomes attach this layer to the dermis. And if you remember from our histology class, we learned that desmosomes were a type of cell junctions that link a cell to another cell, but in this case this is half a desmosome since we are linking the cell to the layer of the dermis. Now, in addition to these characteristics, we're also going to be identifying 3 different cells that live in this layer. Cell number 1 that we're going to be talking about is a melanocyte. And so a melanocyte is a cell that is going to produce the pigment that we know as melanin. So it's a colored pigment. The color is going to range from yellow, tan, brown, black, right? And so the function of this is to protect you from UV rays. So upon exposure to the sun, melanin is going to be produced in order to protect your cells, specifically their DNA, from any UV damage. So these are the cells that are going to be living in the stratum basal, and they are going to be producing the melanin there. This melanin, by the way, is going to also go to more superficial layers, so it's going to travel upwards, and it can reside in any of the other layers of the epidermis. Now the second cell type that we're going to be looking at is a keratinocyte. So a keratinocyte produces keratin, a very important structural protein that is going to give your skin protection as well as water resistant qualities. And as you can see, this cell is undergoing mitosis, and so your skin can regenerate and is always undergoing regeneration. And so cells right here that reside at the very bottom layer, the stratum basal, have a very important mitotic ability. And this is going to allow them to produce new cells. Each cell will give rise to two cells. One cell will stay right here in the stratum basal, but the new cell will then, or the second cell, second daughter cell, will then move its way upwards to sit in these upper superficial layers. And so this is a process that results in continual renewal of your skin. So the skin or epidermis is produced at the bottom, but then it makes its way up through the layers until it reaches the very more superficial layer where it is sloughed off. Okay, and so this is a continuous process, so at any time or any point in time, your skin is regenerating and renewing itself. Finally, the third type of cell that we have residing in the stratum basal is what we call a Merkel cell. And this is a cell that is actually a touch receptor, so it responds to light touch. Next up, let's go ahead and examine the layer immediately above the stratum basal, and here we are at the S level or layer. So here we're going to be looking at the stratum spinosum. So the stratum spinosum is kind of similar to the stratum basal in that it also has keratinocytes. And these keratinocytes are also linked together by the cell junctions that you see here, and these are, in this case, desmosomes. So desmosomes link epithelial cells. And then we also have an additional cell type right here that you see in white, and this is what we call an epidermal dendritic cell, also known as a Langerhans cell. And it's really important because it offers your epidermis an immune defense, so protection. Now let's make our way up to look at the third layer of your epidermis, and this is going to be stratum granulosum. This layer consists of 3 to 5 layers of keratinocytes. So here we are multiple layers of flattened cells, so we refer to this as stratified squamous epithelium. And this is where the process of keratinization occurs. And this is where the cell is going to lose its nucleus and dies. And so pretty much the cell is now consisting of a plasma membrane with a big glob of keratin on the inside. And this allows your skin to carry on its protective functions and water resistant qualities. And so this is a characteristic of the stratum granulosum, and it looks very grainy and granular when the cells become in this manner, and this is where the name granulosum comes from. Now, let's move on up. What you're actually going to see, and this does not appear in all skin, but we have another layer right here that we refer to as stratum lucidum. And this is the L. And this stratum lucidum is actually not found in all of your skin. It is only found in what we call thick skin as compared to thin skin. So if you think about the skin in your body, you're going to notice that your palms and the bottom of your feet, soles of your feet, are slightly thicker. And this is what thick skin means. And this is due to the stratum lucidum layer being present in this type of skin. And the stratum lucidum is a clear or transparent layer and it is containing a transparent protein that we call eladin, and this also offers some UV protection. Okay, so just a reminder, stratum lucidum is not found in all skin types. It's only found in the thick skin that you would see in your palm and soles of your feet. Finally, the most superficial layer is what we call the stratum corneum. Okay, hence the C. And so this stratum corneum is made up of 20 to 30 layers of flattened cells. So we call this, again, stratified squamous. And these cells are keratinized. So keratinized epithelial cells make up these 20 to 30 layers. And this layer here, if you remember, the mitotic activity that took place in the stratum basal pushed one of the daughter cells upwards until it reaches the stratum corneum, this very, very thick layer of flattened cells. And so, on average, once the cell reaches this layer, it will live around 2 weeks in this layer before it is shed off or sloughed off. Okay. And so on average, it takes a cell 2 weeks to get to the stratum corneum, and then it lives there for 2 weeks, and then it is shed. So it takes, on average, a cell around 1 month to get to the stratum corneum and to shed off. So it spends 2 weeks of this month getting to the stratum corneum and then 2 weeks living in the stratum corneum before it sheds off. And so your skin is continuously being renewed, and you have newer cells at the bottom making their way up, dying through the process of keratinization, providing your skin with protection, and hence the stratified many layers, before they are shed off to be replaced by newer and younger cells. Okay? And these are the layers of your epidermis.